they say that a cigar can be akin to a religious experience. And we have got quite the story here with my guy, Brandon Ovesin from Apostate Cigars from Salt Lake City, beautiful Utah. And we've got the Book of Mormon, we've got Latter-day Saints, we've got tats, we've got Sons of Anarchy type outfits, and yet we're smoking smoky treats. Brandon, thanks for hanging out with us, man.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Absolutely. I'm stoked to be talking to you, man. Thank you.
So I always begin at the beginning here. So how does a
Uh-huh.
guy who was in the Church of Latter-day Saints, where you can't smoke, you can't drink, maybe I don't have it correct, but I know you're not allowed to smoke, have a
Yeah.
cigar line and manage a cigar shop. How did this happen?
It was honestly, I mean, at the time that progression was happening, it's not really something that you're necessarily fully aware of where it's going to go, right? So, just quick backstory: I grew up in Utah. My partner Kendrick, who owns Beehive Cigars here in Salt Lake City, grew up, in Utah. Odds are, if that's where you're growing up, you're probably part of the predominant faith, and that was true for us. So, he and I didn't know each other until about 10 years ago. But we had very parallel upbringings, very the community is Mormon, your schoolmates are Mormon, you're going to church every Sunday. Um, he was in a small town and I was in a little bit bigger part of town. And my experience was that I wasn't always very good at being Mormon. You know, I'm not a huge one for playing by the rules if I can get away with it. You know what I mean? So, but he was very straight and narrow. So two different upbringings there in that regard. But you know the Mormon thing. When you're a young man and you're 19 or 20, you go to another country, they send you out to go be a missionary, knock on doors, you wear your white shirt, you ride your bike. I did that in the Dominican Republic. So that's where I got to
Oh, by
go.
the way, very nice.
Very cool. So I got to learn the culture. Obviously, I saw tobacco fields. I saw, the whole cigar scene. It didn't really intrigue me much at that point, being 20 years old. But I got to learn the language, which is really helpful when we go down there now. So I think it's just one of those, like, a natural progression for me. It seems so for Kendrick too, that the older you get, the less you like being told how to live your life a little bit. And so it's one of those choose your own journey kind of things for both of us. It happened for both of us in about our mid-20s. Decided to leave the church. When you leave the church, apostate is their term for you. You're somebody who's walked away from the faith. You no longer follow their ideals. You're an apostate. It's their self-insulating way of calling you a sinner and telling you that you're going to hell. So yeah, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like instead of a scarlet letter, a scarlet word.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so you
Uh-huh.
take apostate, this sort of negative from the Mormon side of town, and you turn it into a cigar line. And you
Absolutely.
mentioned you were down in the Dominican, and so you worked with some great people down there to get started.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about just the challenges and getting started, and how that all came up, because it's easy to say, hey, everybody, kind of like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Everybody has an
Uh-huh.
idea until they got to do something. So how
Right.
did you guys
Right.
down in the Dominican say, we're going to do this and form Apostate?
Honestly, the biggest hurdle for us, we coming from the retail side. So I worked in Kendrick's cigar shop for about 6 years before we decided to make our own cigars. I was the GM, so I was doing the buying. We were going to, IPCPR and PCA together. I was hand selling cigars every day, boutiques, legacy, all of it. So I've smoked literally thousands of cigars before we decided it was time to try making our own. And through those relationships with manufacturers, honestly, getting set up at the table to do our own stuff was a little bit easier. We already had those connections. We had a lot of good friends down there. So Nicaragua, Honduras, DR. Honestly, we could have taken our pick of all three, I think. So what it came down to for us was finding the best ingredients we could find. We like what Hochi Blanco is doing down there at Tabacalera Palma. So he's behind La Galera. He was behind, the Dominican aging room stuff a few years back. Matilde comes out of there, San Parai comes out of there. So when you think of those brands, it's really clean, well fermented, good ingredients, and that's kind of, we figured if we were going to do this, that was a corner we didn't want to cut. We want to make sure we're using the best ingredients and their construction's impeccable. So we called Hochi, and he was our first phone call. He was our only phone call. He was like, "Yeah, come on down." So it was, we were just lucky to have a good relationship already. But the biggest hurdle for us was that we decided to do that in 2020. So it was
Oh, by the way,
yeah. So it's we formed the company in 2020. I think honestly, in the long run, looking back, that probably helped a little. It forced us to slow down. It forced us to take our time. We couldn't rush anything, right? Production is very limited. You can only do so much during a global pandemic. So it made us take our time, really dialed in the first three blends that we launched with, really dialed in the packaging and all that stuff, and helped us kind of formulate a plan to move forward. So as far as struggles go, yeah, you can't just jump in the ring and start boxing. But we feel like we had a really good coaching staff right out of the gate. We were set up to be successful.
and listen, this is a question that I think is worth it. I think you had, I mean, leaving a religion, right, or a sort of a way of life, and all of a sudden a damn pandemic hits. Did you like look over your shoulder and says, "What? Did we piss off the big guy, or
Yeah.
what's happening
Yeah.
here?"
Yeah, man. No, it's one of those, it's comedic almost in its timing, right?
Sure.
The whole reason we leaned into the name apostate and kind of embracing the Mormon imagery and the Mormon symbology was really like, we still live in Utah. We're here. You know what I mean? This is a really hard state to run a retail shop and sell premium cigars. You've got an 86% tax here for right. So I mean, they're making it as hard as possible to do what we're doing because of the ties between the predominant religion and Capitol Hill. It's all connected, right? So we figure, if that's what you're going to call us, and we're going to stay in this state, and we're going to make this work, we're going to lean in. We're going to make you uncomfortable maybe, but it's that's our story to tell, right? You don't get to take away our experience and the fact that we literally served time, so it's like, yeah, I don't fear the wrath of God at all. I think if God's up there and he's watching, he understands that what we're doing is pretty pure in intention. We're just trying to build a different kind of community. So yeah.
And I know he or she or they are a cigar smoker. I can tell you that, because these things are too
It
good to
has to
not
be.
be.
Has to be.
So
Yeah, man. Come on.
So Apostate, which by the way, I'm a big band guy. I mean, this is
Yeah.
awesome. The Apostate, it's got very Mormon symbols in it.
Uh-huh.
And even the names of each cigar. Like right now, I'm smoking the Sword of Laban.
Laban. Laban.
I'm smoking the Sword of Laban, and this is
Hmm.
a seven. This is a big boy, seven and a
Yeah.
quarter by 47 Churchill. Not usually my bag, but I tell you what, it definitely grabs your attention right from the jumps. Got that a little bit of a spicy note to it. Nothing that's going to turn you off or anything. But
Yeah.
a lot of your bands, a lot of your cigars take references from the Book of Mormon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Most of them
Walk us
are
through
straight
this.
out of there. Yeah. Most of them are straight out of either the Book of Mormon or some, ceremony or portion of mythology associated with the LDS faith. For example, the first one we blended is called the initiatory, right? When you become faithful enough or achieve a certain status in the church, you're allowed to go through their temple and do the temple ceremonies. The initiation is the first ceremony you go through. So for us, it's cool to name a cigar that, because this is your initiation into apostate. It was our initiation into how to blend a cigar. It's the first cigar in a lineup of 8. So it's got all this different tie into, yeah, of course it's the initiatory, right? But it's just kind of tongue in cheek that it's also the name of the first ceremony at the temple. So cool. We figured we'd stick with that theme. The second cigar is called the Deseret. That's when Brigham Young and the pioneers settled Utah, it was known as the territory of Deseret. Deseret is a term from the Book of Mormon that means honeybee. Now Utah is the beehive state, right? So it's one of those like they akin beehive and honeybees and all that to their industrious nature. So we use, a sideways honeybee, a little hive for the P in apostate. The third one's called the Liahona. That's a compass from the Book of Mormon that guides the faithful to the promised land if they're, yeah, we lifted something for all of them. They're pretty obscure, but they're conversation starters, and it's fun to talk about. People are genuinely interested, like, what the hell is this? I love talking about it. So yeah.
Yeah, and now what I loved about the one you're smoking right now, the Zarahemla.
Zarahemla.
Now
Mhm.
that one's got like African tobacco in it. It's
Yeah, so
going on in there.
this one is Pennsylvania broadleaf wrapper. And then it's funny because Cameroon has been sort of labeled as a seed varietal instead of a growing region. When people say Cameroon, they're like, oh, but it was grown in Ecuador. Well, then it's not Cameroon, my man. You know what I mean? So it's like that may be a seed that they used to grow out there, but it's Cameroon if it's grown in Cameroon, right? So this is genuine African Cameroon. I hate that I have to say that. But then we've got San Andres filler, we've got Dominican fillers. So it's like 4 different countries in here. It's pretty rich, pretty complex. When I smoked it, you tried this one, you said, yeah.
I did, yeah.
For me, the Pennsylvania broadleaf wrapper really is not the overpowering note here. It's that Cameroon binder. It's got that bready kind of graham cracker sweetness. It's got a little bit of a cinnamon finish, like a baking spice. For all the different varietals that are in the cigar, I expected it, and when we blended it to be a little more bold, but it has really settled into something that I think it's exactly what I want it to be now. So
Yeah,
it's really
it's
smooth.
a perfect little, it's a Toro, it's box
Hmm.
press, and
Hmm.
I'll be honest with you, box presses are not my thing. I like,
I get
I
it.
get why people do it, it's not
Yeah,
my
yeah.
thing, but I was like, I was like, hey man, this thing is pretty good because it was just so
Mhm.
interesting, more than anything,
Right.
more than
It's
anything.
engaging,
That
right?
was the
Yeah,
word.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
all right, so you guys get up and going, you're in cruising altitude, you're getting the brand out there. Um, what's next for you guys? I mean, 2024, I think there's a
Mhm,
couple more
mhm.
cigars coming out, interesting
Yep.
names. What are you guys working on? What's next for you guys?
Yeah, so a couple of things in the works. Our the whole motivation between Kendrick and I for launching the brand in the first place was to scratch our creative itch. He's a professional musician by nature. I dabble in a lot of stuff. We're very creative. We want to make stuff. We want to. I don't know if it's more of the like thinking about the idea of making something is more fun or the actually doing it, but either way, we're pretty driven to always like what's next. So we've got a few things in the pipeline. 2024 for sure. We actually just dropped a press release today. At PCA, we'll be debuting our last 2 blends in the core line. So the core line will have 8 cigars that'll be rounded out. That's regular production stuff. You've got Moroni's trumpet and the endowment. So those will be next. You'll see them at PCA. Probably won't ship till Q3, just to make sure production's good and they have time to rest. So, but after that, kind of want to get weird. You know what I mean? We want to do not regular production stuff. We want to do little runs of like, okay, maybe we do an event only cigar, or maybe we do a yearly release every year that somehow plays on the theme of maybe the core line somehow. So we're not done doing stuff. We just got here. This is only our second year. So we're like, we want to do stuff. Yeah, maybe collaborations. We'll see if anybody's crazy enough to work with us. We'll look at that too. I don't know. Yeah.
Now, it's got to be. You don't strike me as a kind of person from your personality that would just sit back and say, "Okay, good. We've made it. By the end,
No.
we've got 8 cigars."
Yeah.
When did it strike you, or when did it hit you that this idea that we had about making cigars, it's working. It's here. I mean, you can physically feel it, touch it, smoke it, smell it. When did it hit you that, man, we did this?
I think it's still kind of hitting me, honestly, because this month is our second year anniversary on shelves with retailers. 2022 we ended the year with like just shy of 40 retail partners. This year we've doubled that. I expect next year we'll probably double again. It's one of those, like, the eye-opening moment for me is just when I'm sitting with somebody in a lounge. Maybe I was just in Texas this week, and I got to meet a lot of cool shop owners. They don't know me from Adam, right? They've maybe heard of the brand, but I'm not in Texas. They've never met me. So I walk in, I sit down, I say, "Hey, I'm Brandon. It's great to meet you. Tell me about your space. I want to know about the community you're building." It's more about them and their people than the cigar. But the cherry on top is I get to hand them a product that I'm really proud of and that is really good quality, and they get to smoke it. And I get to watch them make the face when they smoke it, and they go, "Hmm," like it's cool, man. Like I don't know. I get to see that all the time, and I love it. And there's still plenty of people who haven't tried apostate yet, so we get to look forward to that.
Absolutely. Now, do you feel like because you guys are in Utah, like the cigar isn't made in Utah? It's obviously,
No,
we talked about where the tobacco comes from all over the world. Is there some sort of like, you've got to get kind of like the RCA dog who kind of cocks his head over like Utah? I mean, I talked to
right?
Casey
Oh
Casey
yeah,
Hopkins from Crux. They're in
yeah,
Minnesota. Because
right,
usually cigars. I mean, I live in Miami, which is like virtually the epicenter
yeah,
of cigars. All the big
right,
boys are down here. Do
yeah.
people? Is it refreshing? Do people kind of look at you like, for real, cigars, Utah?
Yes. Yeah, 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 absolutely. We get the cocked eyebrow all the time, man. Yeah. Yeah, you got like founders in Minnesota too. You've got Big Sky up in Montana. You got Fuerte Libre down there in Texas. You got actually a lot in Texas. But it's cool to be like, yeah, we're Utah's only cigar manufacturer, and everyone's like, "Did you just say Utah, bro?" Like, so it's fun, man, and then that lends itself to us being able to, briefly tell a story to someone else. It's cool,
Yeah,
but we definitely
absolutely.
get raised eyebrows for sure. Yeah.
So I guess I always ask people this because I think it's always fascinating. And, like when I don't think we find the cigar, I think the cigar finds us. Like, when did the cigar find you? Right? You get, oh, I
Oh
was at a
yeah.
wedding, or I was a kid, there was this liquor store. When did the cigar find you, Brandon?
My first encounter with a cigar, that I think lended itself to a continued intrigue for me. Well, watching Pinocchio as a kid, right? Out there on Pleasure Island, and they're smoking through cigars and turning green and getting sick, right? That imagery always stuck in my head, which in turn lends itself to I'm 9 years old, and my dad has cigars in his closet from a wedding he went to, and they're just sitting on the shelf in his closet. My dad's Mormon. He's never going to smoke these, right? You're not allowed to smoke tobacco. They're just sitting there. And I'm 9 years old. And 9 years old was like my most like devious, curious. Like I learned graffiti that year. I drank my first beer that year. I drank coffee that year just because it was out and I was curious. So I stole a cigar. I'm like, he's never going to notice. And I go around the front of the house. I'm hiding under the bushes and I light a cigar and I'm trying to do it like they do on TV. And I inhale. And I was
Mm-mm.
like 9 years old, nearly dying under a bush in the front yard. But still, every time I inhale a cigar a little bit now, I get that note and it transports me back to being 9 years old. So I know that experience definitely carried some intrigue for me over the years. But as far as getting into and actually enjoying the community and the lifestyle of cigars, man, that was only about 12 years ago. It wasn't that long. I was working for UPS where I met my wife, and then I was working for Netflix right after, just corporate jobs. It was one of those working 60 hours a week, no time to see family, no time for yourself. But I got so stressed out and to a point where I needed something, right? So I was like, cigars are kind of cool. Maybe I should try cigars. It lined up with a camping trip where my buddy brought out a really nice bottle of bourbon and some Camacho Connecticut's, and we smoked the whole fucking box that weekend. And I was like, I'm a cigar guy.
When?
I'm doing, yeah, man. I'm in. My poor wife bought me a sampler for my birthday after that, and it was all downhill from there. So I
I
blame
love it.
her.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. My wife tolerates it, thankfully. That's why I'm
Right.
outside in the outdoor version of
Yeah. Yeah.
Blend
They
Studio.
sure they tolerate us.
As a guy who wasn't born into the cigar business, and when you go to see these shops and you meet people, you meet owners, and when you're at PCA, where is the cigar industry? Is it in a healthy place? Because you always have the doom and the gloom, and the crazy taxes like Utah, for example. It seems like it's getting harder and every day to just enjoy a smoke. As a guy who's making a living out of this, where is the
Yeah.
business?
I think demographically, through different regions of the US, you're going to be able to tell a different story. But overall, my impression of the industry overall is we're still doing really good. I think the pandemic really ushered in a little bit of a boom. It brought new smokers to the table. It definitely brought creativity as far as manufacturing goes to the table. Retailers were forced to adapt and find better ways to do business. So I think the last 3 years have been incredible for the industry. If you look at legislation in the West, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, Nevada, they all just passed tax caps on tobacco with almost no opposition. Utah is in the middle of that mess, and nobody in Utah is talking about it. But we'll get there. We just found a lobbyist, so we'll see what we can do. But I think the industry overall, the vibe I get when I'm in a lounge, the new faces, the old faces, I think it's a great time to be in cigars, man. I really do, and I don't see a huge wall. I mean, if you look at the FDA stuff, yeah, of course that's always going to pop up, but we just got a couple of big wins there recently. You know what I mean? So I think things are pretty okay right now. I don't see any emergencies on the horizon.
Well, and it's always good to have good people who are serious about this. And Apostate Cigars, I love the name. I love the band. Where can we find you guys? I mean, in terms of social media, your website, where can we find
Yeah.
you? Well,
So I'm glad you like it, man. No, the social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, and unfortunately, you'll probably see us on TikTok soon because TikTok is blowing up for cigars right now. So you'll find our social media just under Apostate Cigars. Website is apostatecigars.com. If you're looking for where you can buy our product, we have a list on the website. So if you go to retailers, it's sorted by state, and then alphabetically you can see who carries our product. It's a growing list. If we are not selling near you, there's a form you can fill out or have your local retailer fill out. We'll reach out to them and try to fix that. So it's the snowball is rolling. It's getting bigger. So
well, I don't know the next time I'll get out to the Great Salt Lake. I've been there. I've actually been there a couple times. My
good.
sports life, it takes me to see some Utah Jazz stuff and stuff.
There you go.
But I would bet, I'm also in the gambling business. I would bet you'll be in Miami before I'll be in Salt Lake. So I will definitely hope we can hook up when you're
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to be in Miami actually in like 2 weeks. You've got Destination Herf down there in Miami. So I believe that is like the 11th, 12th, and 13th. We'll be down there for that. I've got events. Well, we've got TPE coming up. You got PCA coming up. I'm going to be in Pittsburgh at the end of January. There's a lot going on. So if you go to the website, check our events page, you'll see exactly where we're going to be.
Yeah, and definitely if you're in a shop and you see Brandon, say what's up, right?
Say what's up, please. I love meeting new people, man. Cigar smokers is the salt of the earth. I don't care race, color, creed, any of it. Just say what's up. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely. Well, listen, thank you for the smoky treats, and thanks for the lighter. Look at this.
You're welcome. Absolutely, yeah.
Right? And there you get a real good look at all the letters and all the symbols from Apostate.
Yeah.
Brandon, it's been a pleasure, man. I wish you nothing but the best. And with this attitude and what you got behind you, I know we'll be smoking lots of Apostates in years to come, my brother.
Cheers, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jim.
All right. That's Brandon Ovesin from Apostate Cigars. I'm Jim Rodriguez. This is The Blend. Let's smoke them up.